I think it's safe to say that Minecraft is famous for a number of different reasons. We've got the blocks, we've got the infinitely generating world, the fact that it's completely open and completely sandboxed, you can do whatever you really fancy, but also, there are the bugs. Minecraft is a notoriously buggy game. In fact, it's filled to the brim with bugs. Nowadays, it's not quite as bad as it used to be, but back in the olden times, there used to be some ridiculous things going on in Minecraft, and some of them were incredibly useful. So today we're going to take a look at some of the awesome bugs that have been removed from Minecraft, and I think it's going to be quite a lot of fun. Now before I begin, I just want to say a massive disclaimer right here. I am fully aware of the fact that these things are bugs. They are not meant to be in the game, which is why Mojang removed them. So please don't start tweeting all of the people that work at Mojang saying how stupid they are for removing certain bugs, because, well, that really won't get you anywhere. These were awesome bugs, but I'm also glad that they're gone. This first one got removed really quite recently. In fact, it got taken out in the Minecraft 1.11 update, which rolled out just a couple weeks ago, and that of course is the translocation piston bug. Now this sounds extremely complicated, but essentially it meant that you got pulled through the piston if the piston arm extended through you. Now this doesn't sound particularly useful, but it was actually perfect for massive travelators that take you thousands of blocks, or even elevators which can take you to the top of the sky limit really very quickly. I used them a ton on the Hermitcraft server, and I'm a tiny bit upset that I now have to redesign pretty much every elevator in my base. Going back a little bit now to a slightly more old school bug right here, this was a really good way of finding cave systems, strongholds, dungeons and all that good stuff. All you had to do was place a piston, then a tiny bit of redstone, and then a redstone block or some form of transparent object, then cause that piston to extend, pushing the transparent object on top of your head, and then suddenly you could see through the blocks and see all of the cave systems around you. Now this was extremely handy if you wanted to find that sort of thing, but most importantly if you had just built yourself a mob spawner and you really wanted to light up the surrounding caves, this was a good way of locating them. Unfortunately, this got removed relatively recently. And now onto one of the most famous bugs in all of Minecraft. I personally remember when Mojang were trying their absolute hardest to patch this thing. Every single week they would come up with an update, and then on the day of the update someone would create a new version of this that was about 10 times faster and seemed to produce even more sand. And of course I am talking about the sand generator here. Now the way that these things worked basically depended on the fact that sand is gravity affected and pistons can push and pull blocks, and that meant that it caused some timing issues and things with the way that Minecraft was coded, which essentially meant that you duplicated the sand. And by the end of this, when we had reached the end of the development cycle of sand generators, we got some absolutely ridiculous contraptions. I mean, these things were enormously fast, producing thousands upon thousands of sand a minute. You could get pretty much an entire desert with just a flick of a lever. It was incredible, but obviously a little bit overpowered. As you guys know, redstone is sort of my thing. I personally love redstone, and throughout the entire history of Minecraft, you have always needed to create redstone lines between components. That's obvious. If you want to connect up two redstone contraptions, you need a redstone line connecting them. But at some point in Minecraft, there was a wireless redstone bug. Now this was an obvious thing. This was not a component, and it wasn't an obvious bug either. In fact, it was really very strange, and to whoever discovered it, I have to tip my hat to you, because I don't know what you were doing or what you were trying to create, but it really was very impressive. Essentially you had a boat on top of an iron bar on top of a sticky piston that would bounce up and down, and if you looked at a certain type of iron bar, the boat would drop down onto the pressure plate, giving a redstone output, and if you looked at a different type of iron bar, then the boat would pop up, deactivating the pressure plate, meaning that you didn't have a redstone output. It was really very strange, but also really quite cool. Bit of a fun story, my first ever experience with redstone was to build one of these. I needed a large number of powered rails, and the best way to get lots of powered rails was to create a powered rail duplicator. Now this is getting extremely old now. I'm talking before Minecraft was originally released, but what you had to do was put some powered rails on the faces of sticky pistons and then connect them into some other powered rails and spam those pistons, and then suddenly powered rails would start appearing out of nowhere. It was amazing, and also a lot cheaper than going out and finding all the gold, because there was no efficiency tools back then, so that would take ages. This one's a bit of a strange case because this bug was recently removed a couple months ago and now has been put back into the game and made a lot simpler, which I'd say is a pretty good thing, and that is the item elevator. Originally you had to run items in through a water source, then into the side of a fence post, and that would push the items up into the water stream, which was really very strange. Now you just have to place a dropper facing upwards into a bunch of blocks, and that's it. You just connect it up into a redstone clock. Now that makes my life easier. I don't know if I'd call this one a bug or an intended feature that eventually got removed because it was just so overpowered, and that is the Minecraft 1.11 observer block. Now when these things were first introduced in the snapshots, they were completely bonkers. They would detect updates in air blocks, which meant that you could chain observer blocks together, round corners, upwards, downwards, sideways, whatever you really fancied, and all of these chains would activate instantly. They could do everything instantly, so it was like instant redstone, and it completely changed the way that everyone did redstone. I pumped out a bunch of redstone contraptions, everyone else was making redstone contraptions, but then Mojang sort of took a minute and thought, actually, these things are a little bit confusing, and also they don't make too much sense, especially for those who are new to redstone. So then they changed them up and basically made them a tiny bit more reliable. Before we had crazy piston elevators, slime block elevators, minecart elevators, and all that sort of thing, we had something else that didn't involve any redstone, it didn't involve any pistons or anything like that. That was the boat elevator. All you had to do was place one water source right the way up in the sky wherever you wanted to go, and that would fall down to the ground, preferably into the water, and then you would travel along with your boat, and because of the way that the boats were coded, they would always float to the surface of the water, which means as soon as you'd hit this water, your boats would begin to travel upwards, and you would speed up through this water source until you reach the top, and then you would sort of take off into the sky, bobbing up onto the surface. It would look hilarious and also work extremely well. Now, if there's any bugs that I'm a little bit sad about, and any bugs I sort of miss in the game, I'd definitely say this is the one, because it's probably one of my personal favourites, especially because of how old it is. When this bug was actually active in the game, and I was trying my best to make redstone contraptions around it, I used to absolutely hate it. Now, I used to call it the Armageddon piston bug, and it essentially meant that the piston arm would travel through its own piston arm, and then the piston would break. So you would have both textures displaying at exactly the same time. The retracted piston and also the extended piston, and it would look really very strange. Now this would happen if you sent two pulses through the piston too quickly in a certain way, and when I was starting out on my YouTube channel, when I was first creating my early redstone contraptions, it seemed to happen every couple seconds, and it used to drive me around the bend. One good way to locate diamonds, caves, dungeons, and that sort of thing was to make use of chunk errors. Now this was a rendering error in Minecraft. You'd be walking along, adventuring through the Minecraft terrain, and then suddenly there'd be a massive hole, 16 by 16, right the way through to the void. Now that's basically where Minecraft decided not to render that chunk. It wasn't displaying it. The chunk was there, I mean all of the blocks were in place, but you just couldn't see them. And the good thing is that you can actually peep over the edge and take a look down underneath into the side of the cliff face and see where all of the diamonds and where all of the caves were. It was really useful, but it did used to get quite annoying because, well, they'd be all over the place. I'll be honest, there's a chance that this bug is still in the game and it hasn't been removed. I'm not 100% certain yet, but I have found a few examples of it on the Hermitcraft server. However, I have tried it in a single player world with thousands upon thousands of hoppers and I haven't been able to recreate it. But that is the hopper chunk border duplication bug. What you do is you place two hoppers running into one another on the edge of a chunk border, then you place an item inside one of the hoppers, and that item will bounce back and forth between the hoppers. Then all you have to do is travel miles off into the distance to unload all of the chunks, then you come back in reloading all of the chunks, and in theory, occasionally, the item inside the hoppers will be duplicated. But as I say, I don't know if it really works currently, but it definitely used to work back in the day. This one is probably the only physical bug in today's video, but that is the redstone bug. The redstone bug was introduced in the Minecraft 2.0 update, and every time you powered some redstone, a bug would be produced, which meant that if you had gigantic redstone circuits like I did, you would get thousands upon thousands of these pouring out of the circuit really very quickly. Now of course this could be manipulated to create some pretty ridiculous XP farms using redstone clocks and large planes of redstone, which would also very quickly crash computers. I actually really like this thing. It's almost a shame that it was an April Fool's update. This one is going to be a little bit tricky to explain, but I'm going to try my best to cover it for you. So what you had to do is you had to get yourself a splash potion of harming or some form of splash potion that would kill a large number of mobs. Then you would throw that splash potion, quickly switch over to a looting 3 sword, and when all of the mobs died, you would get the looting 3 effect even though you haven't used the sword. Now this was really useful for things like XP farms because if you had a bunch of skeletons in front of you, you could get much more bones than you were expecting, and it was really good for getting large numbers of resources. Now I'm not 100% certain if this is still in the game, but I'm fairly certain it got patched. So there you have it guys, that rounds up today's video on the awesome bugs that have been removed from Minecraft, and oh there's one more on the list. I think it says, oh yeah, Herobrine. Yeah, they keep removing Herobrine. Herobrine has apparently been removed in the latest version of Minecraft. We are playing in Minecraft 1.11, so he should now be gone.